9 spine-chilling coworker horror stories revealed sinister secrets exposed in the office. Emily could feel the tension thickening like a chilling fog in the Willow Creek office. Whispers curled around her, sending shivers down her spine. "Have you heard? Jenny S. gone, just disappeared." A simple absence, sure. But behind the laughter echoed something insidious, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead, casting grotesque shadows that twisted her coworkers' faces into ghoulish masks. Was she safe here anymore? Did you see her last email? It's like she knew, one intern murmured, her eyes wide with fear. Anxiety churned in Emily's stomach. Something was off. The dreams she had last night, dreams of Jenny's vacant stare, haunted her through the day. As the clock ticked toward the end of another unnerving day, a metallic clang suddenly sliced through the office's stillness. It echoed against the walls like a death knell, making Emily's heart race. "Just the pipes," Greg chuckled dryly, brushing off her rushed inquiry about the noise. But the laughter felt wrong, edged with a fear she did not dare voice. The mundane routine morphed into a stage for the bizarre. A coworker turning pale, a shadow flitting at the edges of her vision, and every time she got up from her desk, a suffocating awareness settled over her as if a predator lurked just outside the line of sight. She remembered the missing mug, the one her grandmother had given her, and unseen fingers twisting her gut tighter with every passing moment. The thought of Jenny, the cheerful intern, swept away by some unseen force, sent icy fingers creeping up her spine. Every face around her, once familiar, now seemed indistinguishable from the stitches of unease that threaded through the fabric of their workplace. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily's breath caught as she delved deeper into the murky world of her office. Late one night, a sense of dread clung to her, heavy and stifling, like the oppressive fog seeping through the town. Suddenly, a vibrating phone on the desk caught her attention, a conversation she should never have seen. Deleted messages rang aloud in her mind. "She knows, you have to silence her." The implication sent shockwaves through her. It was all about control, threats hidden behind friendly smiles. She felt the walls closing in, the very air palpably charged. A distinct metallic sound thrummed in her ears again, clarity mingling with horror. The soft whisper drifted like a ghost through the office. "Do you really think you're safe?" A cold sweat broke over her brow as she clutched a paper cutter, the only object that anchored her to the present. In that moment, with shadows swirling around her like wraiths, Emily's world splintered into confusion. Who could she trust? The familiar faces now felt like masks hiding sinister secrets. What had she unwittingly stepped into? In a tangled web of fears and desperate measures, the lingering question haunted her: to protect her family from darkness, would she have to embrace the very blackness she feared? Emily sat frozen at her desk, the screen's glow illuminating the growing dread in her chest. Heart racing, she glanced around the office. Was it her imagination, or was the atmosphere charged with an erratic energy? The whispers had turned into murmurs, hushed tones filled with urgency, and she felt the weight of every gaze upon her, like an unwanted scrutiny weighing down her spirit. What did the message say? Rachel, a colleague who Emily once considered a friend, whispered, taking a cautious step towards her. The unease radiating off her face was palpable. "Nothing," Emily lied, forcing a smile that felt alien on her lips, her gut twisting tighter. But the truth lingered like a specter above them. The phone's screen blurred in her mind, a snapshot of danger she couldn't shake off. The lights flickered again, sending a moment of darkness through the room. Tension snapped like a taut wire, and gasps erupted. "Stop messing with the lights!" shouted Mike from across the room, his voice edged with fear. But the focus quickly shifted back to Emily, who felt her anxiety spiking. What if she revealed too much? What if someone knew she had seen the messages? Just then, the office door creaked open, dragging over the floor like a funeral dirge. In slinked Jane, the recent hire who had an almost uncanny ability to appear uninvited. Her eyes glinted with something unspoken, and Emily couldn't decide if it was sympathy or something more sinister. "Hey, heard you were looking for something?" Jane's tone was too sweet, syrupy, but the smile never reached her eyes. Emily shivered, recalling Jenny's absence, the tone of fear hidden in each laugh. "I'm fine," Emily managed to say, each word feeling like a fragile echo bouncing off the cold walls. But Jane just laughed lightly, her gaze sharp as a knife. "Are you sure? Because everyone seems a bit tense." Just then, her phone buzzed, and the sound sliced through the quiet like a blade. Emily instinctively leaned closer as Jane quickly tucked her phone away, the glimmer of deceit in her smile unsettling. More secrets? Emily thought, dread coiling in her gut. What had been a friendly workspace now twisted into a house of cards threatening to collapse. Glances shifted between coworkers, each word tinged with suspicion. The fluorescent lights flickered, plunging them back into semi-darkness. But this time, the shadows felt alive, pressing against her, closing in on her tiny space. The chatter faded as time stretched in eerie silence, and Emily's mind raced. She had to leave, to expose the truth lurking beneath the sinister smiles of her colleagues. In that tense moment, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in a darkened window, a gaunt visage, eyes wide and terrified. Was it too late? She shivered, swallowing fear. Just outside the small cubicle, she felt cold fingers creeping along the edge of her sanity. A shadow fell across her desk, and Greg's voice broke the silence. You okay?" "You look," his words trailed off abruptly, eyes zeroing in on something behind her. Panic surged in her veins. She turned and froze. The office door loomed wider, swinging open again as if pulled by an unseen force. There, framed in a sharp spotlight from the hallway, stood a figure shrouded in darkness, the tantalizing outline making her heart thud painfully in her chest. "Time's up, Emily," the voice hissed, each word dripping with malice. "You have a choice to make." Emily's pulse quickened, every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee from the terror embodied in that voice. But the office felt like a trap, a snare drawing her further into chaos. What choice awaited her in the shadows? Would she confront the nightmare head-on, or would she cower beneath the weight of her fears? With trembling hands, she adjusted her grip on the paper cutter, the cold steel offering a pitiful semblance of courage. And as the figure took a step forward, Emily realized that the true horror lay not just in her surroundings but within her own heart. Was embracing the darkness the only way to survive? Emily's breath hitched in her throat as the shadowy figure stepped closer, the flickering light casting grotesque shapes on the walls. It was as if the darkness had taken form, its presence suffocating, wrapping around her like a shroud. Was she still dreaming, or had her reality twisted irreparably? "Choose wisely," the figure rasped, each word like a blade cutting through air. The office felt constricting, the atmosphere thick with unspoken dread. Her colleagues stood frozen, wide eyes reflecting their own grim fears, their faces pallid as they sensed the shifting tide in the room. "What do you want?" Emily managed to croak out, her voice raw and quavering. Anger mixed with her fear. How had everything crumbled into this chaos? A faint flicker of a grin curled the figure's lips, sending shivers skittering down her spine. "Answers, dear Emily? Or perhaps a sacrifice?" Just then, the lights buzzed, flickering again, plunging the room into an unsettling half-darkness. A soft whimper echoed from Rachel, snapping Emily back into reality. She turned just in time to see Rachel covering her mouth, eyes darting around, as if the unseen threat could suddenly manifest beside her. "I can't," Emily stammered, feeling desperation claw at her insides. The paper cutter in her hand felt heavier than ever, its metallic shine now mocking her. The choice loomed before her, a dark abyss filled with possibilities she didn't want to consider. "Courage or cowardice, Emily?" the figure taunted, taking another step forward. "You cannot run from your own shadows. They only grow bigger when you turn away." Suddenly, a shriek pierced the air, freezing everyone in place. It was Mike. He stumbled backward, eyes wide in fear as a mere flick of Winston's darkly charming presence seemed to drain the life from him. "What are you doing?" Mike gasped, his voice barely a whisper. The tension escalated, thickening the air until it felt suffocating. Was it her imagination, or were her coworkers leaning closer to the abyss, entranced by the figure's dark allure? Emily's heart raced faster, pounding in her ears as she struggled to process the horror unfolding. "Which will you be, Emily?" The figure stepped closer, and the shadows flickered as if alive, swirling around its feet. "Hero or victim?" Each word resonated in her mind like a haunting mantra. A moment of clarity pierced through her fear, a fragment of hope. "I want to be a victim," she whispered to herself, strength flooding through her. She focused on the figure, meeting its piercing gaze. If she had a choice, it was time to claim her power. Before she could react, the figure lunged, but Emily swung the paper cutter like a desperate shield. The blade glimmered ominously. She had to carve a path through this nightmare. But her instincts betrayed her. The figure melted into the shadows, its laughter echoing eerily, mocking her resolve. "Run, or face what you fear." The lights flickered horrifically, but this time they didn't just fade. They shattered, sending shards of glass raining down like a chilling storm of crystal daggers. Screams erupted around her, chaos engulfing the space. Bodies stumbled, pushing through the remnants of the office as panic ignited in the hearts of her colleagues. And then it hit her. Everything was tearing apart, not just the office, but the very fabric of her world, unraveling into chaos. Regaining some composure, she darted for the exit, adrenaline surging through her veins. She needed to escape this madness, yet a nagging thought clawed at her. Did escape mean she would abandon the knowledge of the hidden terror creeping alongside her? Would she be leaving behind what had become a terrifying revelation, a truth that could bind them or destroy them all? As she burst through the door into the hallway, breathless and frantic, she skidded to a stop. Shadows lingered there too, curling around the corners like serpents ready to ensnare her once again. "Where are you going?" The sinister voice rang out, echoing down the corridor. Emily stood frozen, the dread crawling back into her chest. There was no clear escape. With every heartbeat screaming against the walls of her mind, she had a chilling realization: running didn't guarantee safety. Ultimately, the darkness was always just a breath behind, and in that fleeting second, the darkness spoke again. "It's never over." What was left to confront? What truth awaited in the shadows still lurking behind her? Emily's heart pounded as she felt the weight of the shadows pressing in tighter around her. Her skin prickled with the sensation of being watched, the air charged with an oppressive energy. Every hair on her body stood on end. She was not alone. The corridor stretched endlessly, the flickering bulbs overhead creating an eerie strobe effect that played tricks on her mind. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of movement, just a shiver of darkness darting away. Was it a trick of her imagination? Or had the figure followed her beyond the confines of the office? "Emily!" A voice shattered her thoughts. It was Rachel, stumbling out of the remnants of the shattered office door. "We have to get out of here." Her eyes were wild, full of terror, as she grabbed Emily's arm. But with that touch, a jolt of static electricity surged through Emily, pulling her gaze back to the darker recesses of the hallway. Shadows twitched as something stirred, coiling like smoke. It was almost as if the darkness had a presence, crawling across the floor in search of prey. "Emily, please!" Rachel cried out, her voice a whimper now. "Before it gets us!" Emily pulled her arm free with a sudden ferocity. "No! We can't just run blindly." Panic coursed through her, but she needed to stand her ground, even as dread wrapped around her throat like a vice. What if there were more to uncover? What if they could fight back? "We need to face this monster." "Face what? Are you out of your mind?" Rachel's eyes widened in disbelief, but the shadows danced closer, whispering promises of despair. A chill twisted at Emily's resolve. She hesitated, turning her gaze back toward the oppressive darkness. "I can't ignore it anymore. I can't let it take us." Before Rachel could respond, the floor rumbled beneath them. The lights sputtered once again, plunging them into a swirling abyss of darkness where a shape seemed to emerge, writhing and pulsing. It shifted, coalescing into a familiar figure, Winston, or something resembling him. His once warm presence now distorted, every feature exaggerated, gleaming like knives in the gloom. "Why do you persist?" The entity's voice dripped with mocking amusement. "You think survival lies in confrontation? Leave us alone!" Emily shouted, forcing her courage to the surface, even as her knees trembled. Rachel's breath quickened beside her, matching the terror in Emily's heart. "Fools," Winston sneered, his eyes gleaming with sinister delight. "You misunderstand your predicament. You cannot escape what you truly are, nor the secrets that bind you." Within the shadows, tendrils reached out like skeletal fingers, grazing Emily's skin, sending a surge of icy terror through her veins. She felt the pulse of something ancient and malevolent stirring within her, gnawing at her consciousness. "Remember the first meeting?" Winston hissed, so close she could feel his breath chilling her skin. "You all dared to share your darkest fears. And now," he chuckled, the sound echoing like the crack of thunder, "you must reap what you have sown." "Stop!" Rachel cried, though her voice quivered beneath the weight of Winston's threat. "We didn't ask for this." The shadows congealed again, taking on new forms, ghastly reflections of their colleagues, each one a harbinger of their hidden fears. Emily felt herself recoil. Was this horror merely a mirror, reflecting their shared anxieties? "Look, Emily, look at what you've created," Winston urged, pointing at the manifestations. "Are you afraid of their judgment, or your own?" With every second, the room pulsated with dread, every heartbeat a reminder that escape was futile. The truth hung thick in the air. Would facing it mean losing everything? Just then, a crack erupted from further down the corridor, and Emily's south heart froze in place. The shadows paused, as if sensing something new approaching, a presence more powerful than Winston. What is that?" Rachel's voice trembled, her eyes darting toward the menacing dark. "Ah, the reckoning has come," Winston hissed, a sinister grin spreading across his face. "Prepare to confront your very essence." The air grew colder, heavy with anticipation. The figure that emerged was tall, cloaked in the darkest shadows, a void that seemed to swallow the very light around it. It moved forward, and Emily realized with dawning horror that they were no longer just facing Winston. They were at the precipice of something much darker beneath it all. "Are you ready to face your fears?" a voice echoed, haunting and familiar. What choice would they have left? Would Emily finally discover the truth, or would it consume her whole? The dark figure loomed closer, a palpable dread that sank into Emily's bones. It was like staring into an abyss, with nothing to grasp. The edges of reality blurred, vibrating with an energy that threatened to consume everything in its path. She could hear Rachel's rapid breaths, each one sharp with fear, matching the quickening of her own pulse. The walls seemed to close in, as if the very building was alive, feeding on their anxiety. "Emily!" Rachel's voice trembled. "We can't let it in." But there was a pull, a sinister magnetism to the figure that drew Emily forward, against the instinct to flee. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, her courage wavering in the oppressive atmosphere. The entity paused, its form shifting restlessly as if contemplating her question. "You know what I desire, child," it whispered, the sound curling into Emily's mind like smoke. "To show you the shadows of your soul, to let you taste your deepest fears." A ripple of air swept through the corridor, causing the flickering lights to dim further. Emily felt a chill seep into her bones, winding around her heart. She exchanged frantic glances with Rachel, who was shaking her head in denial, backing away as if she could escape the reality creeping up behind them. "Stay close," Rachel urged, her wide eyes locked on the dark presence. "Where would we go?" Emily replied, the words strained and almost lost in the heavy silence that had fallen between them. "Face it," Winston's voice echoed, now twisted and mocking. "Run away if you wish, but all roads lead back to this moment, to the truth you've been avoiding." The shadows of their colleagues morphed and twisted, laughter echoing through the corridor. Each face bore twisted grins, reflecting the vulnerabilities they'd revealed in that fateful meeting, now weaponized against them. Emily pressed her palms against her ears, trying to shut out the chorus of agony that filled the air. Remember Emily? A colleague now bore sharp teeth, and a dark, grinning face that seemed to mock her very existence. You told us you feared being found out. Do the people you love really love you back? Shut up! Emily screamed, her voice breaking. You're not real! But deep in her mind, a sliver of doubt crept in. What if they were reflections of her guilt? Each laughter-nudged fear gripping at her throat, squeezing harder until she felt lightheaded. Rachel took a step forward, resolve tightening her features. This is just a game, she shouted at Winston. You can't have us. The shadows recoiled for a moment, pausing as if weighing her words, but Emily could sense the lurking power behind their grasp. Winston's sneer deepened, a malevolent joy sparkling in his hollow gaze. Oh, but it's so much more than a game. This is your reckoning. Emily grabbed Rachel's arm, determination igniting in her chest. We have to fight this. We can't let our fears control us. Together, Rachel whispered, and a sense of solidarity ignited between them. They nodded, pulling strength from each other. But just then, an otherworldly roar shattered the moment, reverberating down the corridor. The oppressive pressure of the shadows surged forward, tendrils reaching out, grasping at their throats, threatening to pull them under. Are you truly prepared to confront what lurks within you? The dark voice echoed, sinister and heavy with promise. With every ounce of strength, Emily felt the icy grasp of despair begin to loosen as they stood firm. We will face it together, she shouted, the echo of her own defiance carving a small beacon of hope in the consuming darkness. Then let the true test begin, the voice replied, and the shadows writhed, morphing into something darker, something threatening. As the ground trembled beneath their feet, Emily realized this was only the beginning. What nightmares had they awakened? What truths lay hidden beneath the surface of their fears? The shadows shifted, revealing a new form in the dark, a monstrous manifestation that resembled the very things they had buried within themselves. Was this the reckoning they dreaded, or the key to their survival? Emily felt the chill of uncertainty coursing through her veins as the darkness loomed closer, hungry for their resolve. Start running! Rachel yelled, breaking Emily's contemplation. But escape may not be a choice. Would they find a way out, or would the darkness claim them forever? The shadows swirled around them, a living tapestry woven from their fears and doubts. Rachel's scream faded into a breathless whisper, drowned out by the heavy silence that followed Emily's declaration. They were teetering on the precipice, their hearts pounding like war drums, each beat echoing the haunting growl that reverberated around them. Let us go! Emily shouted, pulling Rachel forward as the ground shuddered beneath their feet. The darkness seemed to linger, stretching out its grotesque fingers, yearning to ensnare them. It felt alive, a predator reveling in its hunt. But where? The corridors had twisted since they had entered a labyrinth of despair, shadows sliding eerily against walls that once felt safe. Every corner held secrets, and with every passing moment, they felt the walls inch closer, closing in like the claustrophobic grip of the dark figure from which they fled. They dashed forward, panting for breath, adrenaline surging with each frantic step. Emily glanced back over her shoulder but met only a void, a black abyss where Winston's mocking voice echoed softly, You cannot escape your fears, no. We can't let it win. Rachel yelled, the desperation bubbling in her voice. We need to find a way out. Something, anything. The flickering lights above them sputtered ominously, casting erratic shadows that danced like grotesque marionettes. Find a way out, they chanted in a chorus of faint whispers, as if anticipating their next move with sinister delight. Look! Emily pointed to a door at the end of the corridor, barely discernible through the darkness. Let us try that. They bolted towards it, hoping that this path would lead to safety. The door loomed larger with every step, an ancient guardian between them and freedom. But as they reached out, the air thickened, squeezing the breath from their lungs. What if it's a trap? Rachel hesitated, the glint of doubt flashing in her eyes. Emily's resolve hardened. Then at least we die fighting. We can't let them win. With a shared nod, they shoved the door open. Cold air rushed over them, a welcome reprieve from the heavy darkness. But as they stepped inside, a new kind of dread settled in. The room was vast, lined with mirrors that reflected their terrified faces back at them. "What is this place?" Rachel whispered, panic clawing at her throat. Each reflection felt like another piece of their soul distorted, ugly, and bare. In the dim light, they saw shapes lurking behind the glass-twisted versions of themselves, mocking and sneering. "Confront your truth," they taunted, eyes glowing with an unsettling hunger. Emily gasped, her heart racing, as the shadows from the hallway surged through the door like a tide, swallowing them into the abyss with one swift motion. "No!" Rachel's shriek echoed, but it was abruptly cut off as the darkness enveloped them. Shadows clawed at their minds, whispering their fears, dredging up memories they wished to forget, wrapping their terror around them like a shroud. "Face the darkest parts of your soul," a voice thundered, deep and resonant, echoing through the chamber. "What are you truly afraid of?" The mirrored figures closed in, their mouths twisting into wicked grins. Emily struggled to breathe, wrestling with the choking panic that clawed up her throat, threatening to explode. In that moment, the truth scraped at her consciousness. "Rachel!" she gasped, "what if we have to confront them? To find a way out, we have to look within." Before she could utter another word, a crack rippled across the room like thunder, shattering one of the mirrors. The sound was deafening, an explosion of glass that hurt her ears and rattled her core. Now more than ever, Emily felt the weight of uncertainty. Would the key to their survival be the very fears that haunted them? She turned to Rachel, desperate and unsettled, the shadows swirling with a voracious hunger around them. "We can't stay here," Rachel said, her voice small. But just then, another roar echoed through, shaking the ground as the shadows coiled tighter. Emily felt the warmth of despair creeping in again, clawing at her resolve. "Emily, what if we embrace it? What if that's the only way to turn this around?" Rachel's eyes reflected fear and determination. Could they really bear their darkest selves? The thought sent chills through Emily's spine, but escaping might require more than courage, it might ask for their very souls. Would they dare to confront what lay within? Or was there a deeper darkness lurking just beyond their understanding? The air thickened, pressing against them as they stood among the shards of broken glass. Emily shivered, her breath misting in the cold. "What if we have to face them?" she murmured, fear lacing her words. The mirror figures distorted their features into grotesque mockeries. "Face yourself!" they howled, a cacophony of laughter echoing through the chamber. Each sneer felt like a knife twisting in her heart. Rachel stepped closer to one of the mirrors, her reflection warping, revealing the insecurities she had buried away. Guilt, sadness, regret all clawed their way to the surface. "I can't!" Rachel cried, her hands trembling as she pressed against the glass. "What if they're right? What if I can't change?" The reflection smirked, a cruel amusement dancing in its eyes. "You're nothing without your fears. Embrace them. Accept your fate." Emily felt a deep connection to Rachel's struggle. The feelings of shame and inadequacy seeped into her own heart as she approached the next mirror. Her own reflection grinned, teasing and tormenting. "You always thought you were the brave one, didn't you? But look where you are. Lost. Weak," it hissed. "What do you want from us?" Emily demanded, her voice shaky but defiant. "We want to let you take us." Another crack rang out as another mirror shattered under the weight of their sorrow. Shards splintered, dropping down like rain, clinking softly on the floor. Each break felt like a piece of her crumbling self. Suddenly, a chilling laughter echoed, and the shadows around them darkened, thick like grease. "To escape, you must surrender," they growled, transforming into a haze of blackness that swallowed the light, inching closer with each heartbeat. "Rachel!" Emily gasped, desperation surging as she grabbed her friend's arm. "We can't let it win. We have to find our light again." But the shadows responded with a low growl, coiling tighter, whispering the darkest secrets of their past. A memory flashed through Emily's mind, a time she had failed when it mattered most, the weight of shame pressing down like an anchor dragging her into a murky abyss. "Confront it," Rachel urged, sensing Emily's hesitation. You have to face that fear. It's the only way. Tears streamed down Rachel's cheeks, reflecting the scattered light of the mirrors. Staring into her reflection, Emily steeled her resolve. I am more than my mistakes, she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. As if in reaction, the shadows hissed, recoiling slightly at her words. Encouraged, Rachel stepped forward, hands trembling but determined. And I am not defined by my failures, she added, raising her chin defiantly. The mirrored figures sneered. You think you can escape? You're trapped in your own making. The very walls trembled as the darkness surged again. Face the truth. What do you fear most? The shadows crept closer, their breaths hot, clawing at their resolve. Everything, Rachel breathed, her heart racing. I fear losing you, losing myself. I fear being weak. Emily felt that terror resonate within her as well. But I want to fight. I refuse to let fear dictate my life. They joined their voices, shouting against the encroaching shadows. We confront our truth and rise. We are not afraid. With every word, the mirrors began to flicker, the reflections shimmering with a light that pulsed against the darkness. The twisted figures writhed, reassessing their approach as the shadows hesitated. But just as hope flickered, another crack splintered across the room, shattering the illusions. A whisper of an ancient truth echoed, pulsing through each fiber of their beings. Prepare yourself. The darkest part of your soul approaches. A figure emerged from the depths of the shadows, towering and unseen. The air grew cold, a rubber band pulled tight, and Emily's throat went dry. What horror awaited? As they faced the unknown, the chilling question lingered. Would they be able to overcome their greatest fears, or would the darkness lead them to their inevitable end? The figure slithered from the shadows, its shape a distortion that tugged at Emily's mind. A black mist settled over it, blending with the darkness that pulsed in the room. Fear gripped her heart, making it thud wildly against her ribs. She could feel Rachel's hand go cold, an anchor of dread. What is that? Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know, Emily breathed, her gaze fixed on the growing form. It was a silhouette of everything they had ever feared, a shape that embodied their doubts and regrets. The creature's eyes glinted like obsidian, revealing a void deeper than night itself. You thought defiance would save you? It rasped, words slipping around them like ice. You cannot escape what lies within. No! We want to let you in! Emily shouted, desperation fueling her obstinacy. But even as the words left her mouth, doubt began to gnaw at her resolve. You think courage can save you? The creature laughed, a sound so hollow it chilled the marrow in her bones. What happens when courage fades, and all that's left is fear? The mirrors around them began to crack again, more ominous fissures spiderwebbing across the surfaces. Each fracture echoed like a heartbeat, resonating with their despair. The shadows stirred, inching toward the two friends, hungry. Rachel, don't look away, Emily urged, pulling her friend closer. But Rachel's gaze was fixed on the floor, her eyes glistening with tears. I can't look at myself anymore. What if I am what they say? What if we're trapped forever? Those words slammed into Emily, a bucket of ice water dousing her own flickering hope. No! We are more than this, she insisted, pushing the rising tide of panic down. Remember that time we stood up to Lucy? We can do it again. Lucy, Rachel whispered, recalling the schoolyard bully who had taunted them relentlessly. You're right, if we can face her, we can face this. Steeling themselves, they fell back into synchrony, hands clasped tightly. We'll fight together, they both shouted, refusing to let fear drown them. Their voices echoed defiantly against the edges of the shadows, igniting a spark of light between them. But the creature lunged, its tendrils wrapping around them like iron chains, forcing them to the ground. You cannot fight what is part of you, it screamed, its voice a thunderous roar filling the room. A harsh wind whipped through, swirling the shadows, intertwining fear and pain into a suffocating embrace. Emily gasped, her breath hitching as the weight of her own guilt bore down her deepest, darkest shame unfurling before her. How could she fight when she felt so weak? Together! Rachel shouted again, pulling Emily's attention back. We face this together. We are not our fears. With renewed determination, they pushed against their bindings. Emily felt a flicker of warmth growing inside, banishing the cold creeping around her. We choose to break free. The shadows strained against their resolve, crackling like a frayed wire. As their voices soared higher, the figures in the mirrors began writhing in hope, colors shifting like a tempest, no longer simply reflections. Suddenly, a deafening crash resonated as one of the central mirrors shattered completely, a blinding light erupting from the shards. It enveloped them, sending shockwaves reverberating through the darkness, the creature's form flickering like a candle, shrinking under the force of their voices. Keep pushing. Don't stop. In that moment of clarity, the shadows began to retreat, unsure, wavering. But just as they thought they had found their way out, the room shifted again, a new layer of darkness creeping in. What now? Rachel shrieked, their bodies still chained to their past. Emerging from the most haunted mirror, a figure appeared, this one familiar yet twisted. Emily gasped as her mother's face stared back, contorted with a cruel smile. I told you to be perfect, didn't I? The figure whispered with a voice laced with malice. The fight they thought they had won felt fragile now, unraveling in front of them. Emily's heart raced, panic flaring in her veins. What horror awaited them in this new confrontation? As the oppressive darkness thickened and a new wave of despair washed over them, the question hung like a noose. Could they stand strong against the manifestation of their past, or would they crumble under the weight of their secrets? Emily's breath quickened as her mother's twisted form loomed closer, the cruel smile widening, the words dripping like poison into the air. You let me down, Emily, why can't you just be perfect? Each syllable sliced through her like a jagged blade, echoing her worst fears. Rachel's grip tightened on Emily's hand. This isn't real. It can't be, she gasped, shaking her head vigorously. The shadows were creeping closer again, hunger in their depths. Not real? The figure laughed, the sound a jarring blend of maternal warmth and icy malice. What is real, dear? The lies you tell yourself? The shame you harbor? You're only seeing the truth now. As she spoke, the room shivered with the weight of Emily's memories, all the moments of perceived failure and inadequacy flooding back. The ache of every stinging comment from her mother, the crushing weight of high expectations that had felt more like shackles than encouragement. Stop it! Emily shouted, her voice growing stronger. Memories of sweet moments flashed through her mind, battering against the taunts. You aren't real. You don't define me. That's adorable, her mother sneered, stepping closer, the floorboards creaking beneath her. But here, in this place, I am your truth. You're always measuring up, or falling short. Dark tendrils surged forward, wrapping around Rachel and Emily. The room shrank with their growing fear, pressing down like a sinister vice. Emily's heart pounded, urgent adrenaline spurring her to fight back. Rachel, remember how we faced down those bullies together? How we laughed after? Emily cried out, forcing her mind to cling to the memories that glittered with warmth. Yes. We did. We can do it again. Rachel shouted, her voice now filled with fire, rekindled hope dancing in her eyes. Channeling their shared resolve, they squeezed their eyes shut, summoning all the strength they could muster. With a defiant roar they commanded, "We are enough. We won't be bound by this." The light from the shattered mirror flickered, illuminating the edges of the darkness, and revealing the opalescent mirrors trembling in rhythm with their heartbeat. The sinister figure faltered, confusion flashing over her distorted features. "Do you think you can escape me?" she shrieked, her voice rising to a haunting crescendo. The shadows snapped and crackled, the air thick with dread. "Yes," Rachel yelled, pulling Emily closer. "We will be free." An astonishing wave of warmth ignited between them, surging out to meet the advancing shadows. The light swelled, bloating into a brilliant glow that began to unravel the darkness around them. The ghastly figure retreated, horror dawning in her obsidian eyes. But just as it seemed they might break through, Emily felt a freezing grip coil around her leg. A slender hand reached up from the abyss, skeletal and clawed, another face emerging from the darkness, another horror seeking to claim her memory. Emily's widened eyes landed on the second figure that crawled out, its voice hoarse and brimming with bitterness. "You thought you could rid yourself of me? I am the consequence of your choices. I am the weight you refused to carry." Who are you?" Emily stammered, a chill settling in her bones. "I am your guilt. No matter how hard you fight, I will always haunt you," it sneered, its face shifting, morphed with shades of her past failures, each line etched with despair. The new sinister presence tangled with the shadows as the two figures circled them tighter. "We can't fight them all, Emily!" Rachel screamed, her voice trembling under the suffocating weight of dread. But Emily's determination ignited once more. "We have to keep going. We can't let them claim us. We've faced our fears before." As they pushed against the burgeoning darkness, something shifted in the air. The figures faltered, hesitating, as if her words, drenched in fervor and conviction, momentarily disturbed their hold. But would it be enough? With dread lurking, a powerful question clawed at her mind. Could they truly banish these manifestations of their past, or would they, in the end, be consumed by the very fears they sought to escape? The darkness surged forward, creeping closer, thwarting their resolve like an insatiable tide. It was an all-consuming force, wrapping around Emily and Rachel, dragging them under, threatening to silence their voices. But then, in the midst of terror, Emily felt a spark ignite deep within her. "Rachel!" she yelled, desperation mixing with determination. "We can't let fear rule us. Remember why we started this journey." It was a call to arms. Rachel's eyes widened as she grasped what Emily meant. "We own our story. Not them." The shadows hesitated, flickering slightly, uncertain in their malevolence. They could feel a shift in the atmosphere, the warmth of courage fighting against the cold grasp of despair. Together, they echoed in unison, their voices harmonizing, fortified by a deep-seated bond of friendship and strength. They wouldn't be defeated. As a wave of warmth radiated between them, the figures of guilt and twisted memories wavered. Emily and Rachel stood firmly against the encroaching shadows, intertwining their fingers, creating an unbreakable chain of solidarity. The air trembled, thick with uncertainty, but hope surged like an unexpected dawn breaking over the horizon. Their voices crescendoed as they shouted, "We are not defined by our past. We will push through the darkness." Suddenly, light erupted from the shattered mirrors around them, shining brightly. The warmth grew, illuminating every corner of the room, forcing shadows to shrink back, snarling in agony. Emily saw the reflection of courage reflected in every shard, a multitude of bright selves that had been hidden away, lost among the fear. "Face it. You're nothing without us." They taunted from the darkness, but their bravado faltered as Emily pressed on. "We are everything. We embrace our flaws and our fears," she screamed, the echo amplifying her conviction. Rachel squeezed her hand tighter. "And we will rise above them." At that moment, they moved toward their fears, merging their strength and courage. The figures faltered, shadows twisting in disbelief. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, and recalled every moment of joy she ever felt, every tiny victory. With every recollection, the light grew brighter, pushing the darkness further away. Together, they propelled forward, unleashing a wave of light that surged to the center of the room. The voices of their fears screamed in protest, but the brightness of their united hearts drowned them out, ripping through the fabric of despair that had chained them for too long. Bit by bit, the shadows began to dissipate, their ghastly forms flickering and dissolving, howling in rage. Emily felt the weight lift. The grip of anguish loosened. With one last surge of strength, they roared, "We choose to be free!" The shadows shrieked, collapsing in on themselves as the air thickened with peace. And as the darkness faded away completely, the room brightened, revealing the two friends still standing, hand in hand, hearts pounding but bolstered by newfound courage. They gasped together, taking deep breaths, the chill of fear lifting as sunlight streamed through a newly revealed door at the far end of the room. "It's over," Rachel breathed, bewildered. Emily nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks, a smile breaking through the remnants of terror. "We did it. We faced them. As they stepped toward the door and out into the warmth of the light, they felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over them. The past was not something to escape but rather something to understand and accept. "I'm so glad we didn't run," Rachel murmured, a soft smile gracing her lips. "Me too," Emily replied, looking around to see that the eerie whispers had turned into light laughter. "We can finally move forward." The sense of heaviness that had always loomed over the workplace dissipated like morning mist. Colleagues, once sinister shadows of misunderstanding, now appeared as vibrant individuals, hopeful glimmers warmed by sun. As they stepped into the new day, Emily and Rachel knew challenges awaited, but together they had cracked the darkness, finding the shards of their own strength. They could face anything now. The office might never be the same, but neither would they. They had transformed their fears into fuel, burning brightly with the promise of tomorrow. It was over, but in the wake of their victory, the real journey had just begun. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion to Emily's story, this is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, helping more fans discover these spine-chilling tales. And don't forget to flood the comments section with all your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear every single thought. Lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.